But let's catch up with Bella Debrera now for the Institute of Public Affairs and talk about another insult in when it comes to educators in this country. Bella, this new booklet providing curriculum advice to teachers, telling them not to talk about boys and girls in our schools.
Look, it's actually not a booklet. It's quite a hefty book. It's quite a hefty production. And it's come out of Monash University, which shouldn't surprise us because this is where universities are where most bad ideas seem to reside at the moment. One of the major things that have gone wrong in society at the moment seem to be, one of the major areas that have gone wrong are the universities because they're propounding this identity politics, this critical race theory, radical gender theory, you name it, they're propounding it. They're trying to push it into society. They're doing their level best to get into the schools. And they're saying in this book, amongst other things, that words like boys and girls are, cause damage and are traumatic. But on the other hand, they've got a whole chapter about how we've got a climate change emergency. So for me, it's much more traumatic for the children to be told that their young lives might be cut short prematurely because of a climate change disaster, as opposed to the teacher using boys and girls in the school. I mean, it's totally schizophrenic and it's totally typical of the radical ideology that's coming out of our universities. Yeah,
that's a great point. I'd seen the two problems as separate, but they are related, as you say. Don't use gender terms because that's too stressful for children, and yet they're stressing them out about the climate incessantly, and that's only getting worse. I'll come back to climate in a moment. But just on gender, we keep hearing this, and every week or two there seems to be a new revelation, a new push, and this book is the latest one. They're actually thinking that we could get girls and boys in a school classroom and somehow have no reference to the fact that there are girls and boys and gender. I mean, it just doesn't seem practical or logical. I know lots of school-age kids. I have 2 primary school children myself. It's just not the way society functions. They know what girls are. They know what boys are.
Yeah, it can never happen because it's a total denial of reality.
Yeah.
And it just shows how out of touch these university academics are, where they really believe that somehow you can... It's all about social engineering, really, isn't it? They believe that you can create a genderless classroom because they don't believe that gender should exist, because they believe that there's a power play between men and women and, the usual stuff that goes with radical gender theory. So if you can get rid of gender altogether, then you get rid of inequalities, supposed inequalities.
Yeah.
So it is completely out of touch with reality. It can never happen. You're going to always have sit down boys, sit down girls, quiet over there boys in the corner, girls stop messing around. You can never get out of this reality. This is
it is just nuts.
Impossible.
And look, it's not like there have been some changes that are great. For instance, it's second nature now in the footy team or the soccer team or the cricket team. There's girls and boys, and the boys think nothing of the fact that there are girls in the teams. And of course, that never used to happen back in my day. So those changes are fine. But the idea that, as you say, you can pretend gender doesn't exist, that sexes don't exist, is an absurdity. But on this climate issue, this is really alarming too, because this booklet is encouraging teachers to declare a climate emergency, to tell children this is emergency. I mean, this is misleading, this is deceptive, and it's about scaring children.
Yeah, as I said earlier, the book seems to be a lot about mental health of children and sort of stopping traumatic experiences especially for children who, are binary and transgender and all that kind of stuff that they love to get into. But then they have a whole chapter on how you declare this climate emergency, how you terrify children, how everything from the minute that they get up in the morning to the minute they go to bed is all about worrying about the fact that we're going to have an apocalyptic event of climate event. So it's also actually reflected in the proposed new curriculum by ACARA, which I've been looking at, which is very much, looking at climate change as the science is being settled, and this is something that you really need to worry about, whereas something like Anzac Day or Australia Day is contested. So it's this kind of ideology is really deeply embedded now in education, and especially the climate change stuff. And we've talked about on your show before, the climate change marches,
yep.
the sort of the terror that they're filling children with, which is akin to sort of child abuse, really, isn't it?
It is, and it's deeply worrying, and the only way to challenge it is through the political system, and too many of our politicians are completely disinterested in all of this. Thanks for bringing it to our attention again, Bella.
Thanks so much.
Bella Debrera there with the latest. This is such a worry. We've got to keep highlighting this. We've got to fight against it. Parents at schools, talking to your politicians, whatever you can. Stand up for reality as opposed to this sort of blind ideology.